Alpha Team is flying around the forest zone situated in northwest Raccoon City, where we're searching for the helicopter of our compatriots Bravo Team, who disappeared during the middle of our mission. No, I haven't found it yet. Bizarre murder cases have recently occurred in Raccoon City. There are outlandish reports of families being attacked by a group of about 10 people. Victims were apparently aliens. Bravo Team went to the hideout of the group and disappeared.
Chris?
It was Bravo Team's helicopter. Nobody was in it. But strangely, most of the equipment was still there. However, we soon discovered why.
Hey! Come here! Run for that house!
Chris Redfield. Jill Valentine. Barry Burton. Rebecca Chambers. Albert Wesker. Resident Evil.
Welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. This is a special one, especially for me. Here we're looking at pretty much my all-time favourite game. The game that literally that started everything for me with the PlayStation. And that is Resident Evil, the very first game in the series.
Captain Wesker, where's Chris?
This game was actually one of the first games I'd ever played on the console. I've actually done previous videos on my first experience with the PlayStation. I'll link them down in the description so you can check them out before you actually watch this. And now I had played a few kind of demos and one or two other games before this, but this game just completely blew everything out of the water for me. It really did. This game was just beyond another level. I remember being down at my mate's house when he invited me down, and he got the PlayStation that Christmas, and he had gotten quite a few games. He had the likes of this here, he had Time Commando, Shockwave Assault, and a couple of other games and demos. And I remember him actually showing me the case for this here, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, whoa, zombies, because he knew rightly well that I wasn't a big fan of like horror type movies, because I wasn't big into like guts and gore and all that type of stuff. But I will admit, when I seen this game, I was like, whoa, that looks amazing. And he's like, dude, you can actually go around an actual big house and there's zombies roaming around the place and you can shoot them. And I was like, wait at that. And he's like, no, I'm serious, this is like watching a movie. And at first I didn't particularly believe him, but then I was looking at the game case, and I'll be honest, I kid you not, I was staring at it for a good probably hour, reading through the information on the back of the case, reading the instruction manual, looking at the photographs, taking it all in. I was so intrigued by this game. So quite naturally I was so intrigued to actually play it, and when we did get to play it eventually, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And this scene here, I'll never forget it. I was just completely blown away by this here. It just kept getting better. I remember like after watching that scene and then just seeing the zombie get up, and I was like, because I was playing the game, I was like, yo dude, what the hell do I do? I'll tell you what, if I did not crap myself that day, there was something wrong. That there was one of the scariest moments I'd ever seen in a game. It was so kind of surreal. I really couldn't believe what I was seeing. He was true to his word. He says, dude, this really is like a movie, and you know what, he was right. Because I remember seeing that zombie get up off the ground, and I was like, I had not got a clue what to do. I didn't even know how to run, I didn't even know how to aim. Mark was trying to explain to me what to do, and sure, I was so used to playing likes of Sonic the Hedgehog or Super Mario Brothers and stuff like that on the Super Nintendo or the Mega Drive. To go and play something like this here with so many different intricate controls, I was like, I hadn't a clue. It just, my mind was completely blown away. I didn't even understand the concept of all these button combinations to get certain things to work. Even though when I look back at it today, it is very simple, but back then it was not. Especially when you were new to all this, it was just like, oh, it was crazy. And then to top it all off was the fact is that you were scared, I mean literally just out of your wits, just to, you know, try and figure out what to do.
Barry?
Say, I don't want to curse, but that's, if I was going to, that's exactly what I would actually be saying.
Let me take care of it.
Because it really just, it was absolutely incredible. And it kept getting better and better and better. And the more I seen it, the more I wanted to play it.
What is
Because
it?
again, like I was going back to when I was reading the case, I was literally trying to
Maybe by the
feed off as
creature.
much information as I possibly could.
Anyway,
Now I
let's
know
report
by
this to
today's
West-
standards, the acting is very cheesy, but that's what made the game as good as it is. Because even though it wasn't as, say, professional as a lot of acting in games today, but the one thing that was unique about this game was the fact is that you could see what developers and people were trying to do back in those days. Storytelling was only part of the play, and they're only really kind of getting involved with voice acting and playing like stories and telling stories in games back in those days. So you can clearly see that, and you can see how far it's actually gone on over time. But this was an excellent starting point, and it's amazing to see how far they've actually come with it. So again, like going back to the characters, the first character I literally played was Jill, and her game was technically that little bit easier. Still difficult, mind you, especially when you're playing it for the first time. You get access to more ammunition, you have actually stronger weapons, and you do have a couple of extra inventory slots so you can carry a few more items. So then I remember playing as Jill for the first time. I know I played as Chris, but I didn't play as Chris's campaign until the very next morning. And my mate was actually like, this campaign, Chris's one, is actually more difficult because he has less stuff available to him. And I was like, oh, should I give it a go anyway? And yeah, you don't start off with a gun. You literally only have a knife, you literally have to run away from everything. Ammo was definitely a lot more scarce, and the thing is with Chris's campaign, it is a lot more difficult because zombies will take double the amount of hits on ammo, bullets, to literally put them down as it would with Jill. So, and Chris also has 2 less inventory slots, he can't carry as many items, so you really have to be strategic in the item, out of your item inventory and management in this game. But again, it adds so much to the challenge. And I just, even when I look back at even against like today, I'm still blown away by what this game was able to present for the time. Again, now I was 14 years of age when I first played the PlayStation, but again I was just like, you know, it was beyond at that time anything that I'd ever witnessed. Now the PlayStation had been out roughly about a year and a half before I'd ever actually played it. But I wasn't, at the time I wasn't really too bothered. It wasn't until I actually got to play it. But then literally the experience all these games, and especially to play this here as one of my first games, it was just unbelievable. I'm not even kidding. It's just to be able to experience something like this here, especially for playing a brand new console, and especially playing with different types of games that you never would have been able to play on previous consoles, let alone anywhere, was just unreal. And again, this game really is so important because not only is this game so unique, this game in its own right pretty much revolutionised gaming to a whole different level. But not only that, survival horror gaming, it created its own genre of gaming. Now I know that there were games that were out before this. There was even like Alone in the Dark, which kind of set that whole thing in motion, having fixed cameras and kind of scary kind of like style gameplay. But this here perfected it, so it did, and it brought it to a whole nother level because it, even though apart from the acting, it had a very good story and a really good plot line. Plus it really was and still is scary as hell. It had a lot of jump scares, a lot of kind of eeriness that to be honest actually was very, very hard for a game to actually mimic in those days, and this game really nailed it, so it did. And even for its day, I know the graphics probably don't look as good today, but the graphics were really, really good and high quality for its time, and it just added so much to the atmosphere. And the fact that you were running around a massive mansion that was just literally littered with monsters, and it actually increased in difficulty as you got on, because you weren't just fighting zombies, you had zombie dogs and there was other types of enemies. Then later on in the game, it's just, it added so much. I'm not kidding you, like remember like even when we used to rent out the PlayStation, after I got to play it, we didn't have enough money to buy our own PlayStation, so whatever little bit of pocket money we would have at the weekends, we would literally just save it up during the week. And there was a local place around up the road from where I lived, and we started renting out the PlayStation from this guy. He had a couple of them now. He had his own kind of like shop in his garage, and he used to actually have a few PlayStations and rent them out at the weekends. And actually it got to a point where he actually used to keep one for us, because he used to know that we'd be regularly coming round on a Friday evening to actually rent it out. And 9 times out of 10, for at least 6 to 10 months, we would get, you were allowed 2 games, and Resident Evil 1 was always one of the games. It was always the main game you would get every time, because myself and my mates, myself and my mate Derek, he used to live across the road from us, and he practically lives in our house growing up, and we were just all obsessed with this game. I mean literally we played it so much, played like taking turns. And we were playing it as well with no memory card, so every time someone messed up, you'd have to play the whole thing again. You'd be cracking up at the time, but at the same time you were like, it was cool because it was a learning experience, because you knew not to make the same mistake again. But what would happen was then you'd give someone else a go and let them play it and experience it. And everybody that played it just got so much, and even the likes of my younger brothers at the time didn't really play it as much, but they used to love just sit and actually watching us play the game. Myself, say Derek, and my other brother Stephen, and one of my other brothers would play it, and Mark the odd time, my other mate Mark, if he called in the house, and they'd all be playing it. And people used to just gather around the house and have all my mates be together and literally just be sitting watching this game, trying to explore the story, trying to understand what was going on, trying to find like hidden secrets, if there was any hidden ammo for weapons, or if you were running out of ammo, how could you get out of certain situations, what was the best type of weapons to use against certain bosses and so forth, or against different enemies. There was so much in it. And the cool thing about this game was the fact is that not only could you play through the entire campaign, but you also had different endings, and the endings and different things would happen in the game depending on different situations. And pretty much through live play you could make specific choices. You could choose to have someone with you or not, or depending on where you are at a certain time, if you were playing through the game quick enough, you would trigger off different events, different cutscenes, and unlock different features in the game that you actually wouldn't be able to get if you were playing normally, which was really unique for its time. It was actually, a lot of it was way ahead of its time. As I say, I highly rate this game. Like, if you ask me, I'll always say the PlayStation is my favourite console, which it is. It's my favourite console of all time. but this here, Resident Evil 1, is my favourite game of all time. And I've played a lot of excellent games, but I will always go back to this here. The reason being is because not only was it my first experience with the PlayStation, but it was also my first experience with Resident Evil, and having those two combined together in pretty much the same day was just something that I'll never be able to probably witness or ever feel again. It just gave me such a feeling of like just something completely just beyond anything that I'd experienced at that point in time in my life, and it really changed how I seen things and even how I played games. And I refer to Resident Evil on a lot of different things like as well, because like it's just it's absolutely insane. And if you haven't played Resident Evil, you're definitely missing out. Like, this game has spawned a whole franchise that's gone on since 1996. That's nearly over 20 years now. You know, 24 years as I was recording of this video. And it spawned numerous sequels and spin-offs, plus loads of movies. Now, I won't really talk about the movies because the movies don't really fall in hand with the games. The games are definitely more worthwhile playing, and it's just, it's absolutely incredible. And this here direct game here as well also spawned its own remakes as well. Like, there was a remake for the Nintendo GameCube that was later released on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox and PS3 way back in 2015. If you haven't played that one there, you highly need to check that one out, because that's definitely one of the best remakes, if not the best remake of all time, of any game. Because it's even scarier than this one here. The acting is better, it's darker, it's more gritty, and it's definitely just, and graphically it still holds up really well today. And that was released in 2002, and it's a fantastic game. They also done another version of this here particular game with this type of graphics for the Nintendo DS. It was Resident Evil Deadly Silence, way back in, is it 2004, 2005? And that was also an awesome version of the game as well, because it also utilised a lot of the Nintendo DS qualities, because the Nintendo DS had like a touchscreen, used like a wee stylus pen, which was one of the early versions of touchscreens in consoles. And it also had a mic as well, so you had to use, like, there was mini games in it where you had to swipe across the screen to use your knife to kill off enemies, and other features using the microphone where you had to blow into the mic to do certain tasks and stuff like that as well, if you were trying to, say, resuscitate someone or something like that, which, to be honest, added so much more depth to the game. And it was unique, really unique for its time, because it just felt so real. It felt like you were really part of the game. So this game has had tons of spin-offs, but not only that, this game has actually literally spawned countless amounts of clones from other like genres, other developers creating the likes of horror games. It's absolutely been incredible how this game has inspired so much over the years, this one particular game. Now, I know it was bettered by sequels. There was Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, which are incredible games. If you've played them, you know what I'm talking about. But if you've ever played it, it's awesome to go back to play this game, because this game is the one that pretty much started all that, and it's still, for me, as good today as it's ever been. And I still just love the fact of just being able to wander around that derelict mansion and just have literally just the crap scared out of you time and time again, because it's still as eerie today as it ever was, in my opinion. It really is. It's such a unique game. And the fact is, it uses pre-rendered backgrounds with 3D characters, which for me at the time was just totally surreal. But it made it all feel really authentic, and that's what actually added to the whole atmosphere of the game, was the fact is that you couldn't see what was actually around the next corner. You could go into a room and think everything's there. You couldn't even hear zombies in the background. They'd be just standing there, or they'd be lying on the ground, and you didn't know or couldn't see anything. And then you go into a room, and it's just, you completely just crap yourself, because you'd literally be walking in and you'd have literally no ammo in your gun, especially if you're playing on Chris's campaign, which the ammo for the most part of the game is very, very scarce, at least until you actually got better quality weapons. But even at that, the ammo was very, very scarce at the time, so it was just, you were really kind of just biting your lip, hoping that you would actually get through portions of the game. And if you had to, you literally either had to use your knife, knock an enemy down, and literally just run past them. It was the only way really to kind of get through a lot of the game, especially when you were first playing through it. It added so much. This game really is incredible, like, so it is. And again, you have different areas of the mansion to explore, both upstairs and downstairs, and each room looked totally different to the next. Like, you even see here what I mean, like you walk into a room, you can't even hear or see anything until you go around the corner and there's literally 3 zombies there, and you're like, oh, I mean literally you would panic, you'd nearly take a heart attack when you seen it. That's how involved this game was, that's how it actually made you feel. And the fact is, like you see here, the zombies weren't fully dead. And the thing with this Resident Evil game, the reason why it was so scary is because there was, in the original game, there was no auto aim feature as well, so you were shooting blindly. You had to figure out where everything was coming from, and if an enemy was coming towards you, you just have to hope that you're positioned enough that you could actually aim at that particular enemy, then hoping that you would hit them. But 9 times out of 10 you'd end up missing and shooting off more bullets and never hitting anything. That was the incredible part of it, because that's how much this game really got under your skin as you were playing it, because you were panicking the whole time. That's how it really made you feel. That's what was so unique about it for its time. It really, really was. It definitely just blew everything out of the water. It really did. And again, even with the loading sequences, when you open up the doors, even though that was used as a loading to load up the next area, but that, even at that, added really so much to the atmosphere. Like, even seeing there coming down the stairs, everything was just so slow and just creepy, and you did not know what to expect when you played the game. Because if you have played this game, you'll know exactly what happens in different events, especially later on in the game when you do have to revisit certain areas. Different things happen, and it just adds so much to it. It scares the crap out of you all over again. Just when you thought you're out of the woods, something else happens, or you end up coming across stronger enemies, and you're just like, it's unreal. I say, I don't want to give away too much, because there probably may be people watching this video that actually haven't ever experienced this game, which, in my opinion, you have to. If you're a gamer at all, if you don't know about Resident Evil, you need to get involved with it, and you need to understand it, because this really is one of the all-time greats. It really is. And it's pretty much the whole game that literally started the whole survival horror genre in itself. And like I mentioned, even on the PlayStation era, the one reason why I love the PlayStation era so much is because there was so many different types of games like this. And there was loads of different clones from other developers and companies that tried their hand doing these type of games. Not all of them were survival horror, so a lot of them had different kind of concepts and more kind of cheesy kind of concepts, if you will. Some really, really good, some probably not as good, but you could see the ideas there. Some weren't as refined as the Resident Evil series, but you could see the ideas, and it was always cool to see it. But I love this style of game, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that it was one of the first games I ever played in the system. But the whole PlayStation really kind of engulfed that kind of whole feeling and all these type of games anyway. It brought it to the market. And for a long period there was kind of a decline in these type of games, especially later on as consoles got newer, with the likes of the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3, even up until a point in the PlayStation 4. But in recent years, in the last 2 to 3, 4 years, there has been a resurgence of these type of games. A lot of developers are really starting to explore these concepts again, which, to be honest, is fantastic, because these type of games really need to be looked into a lot more, and even made kind of like, even with new genres, new ideas, new concepts, but with these original styles, even with modern controls, because I know a lot of people didn't like the types of the tank controls, because with the way the character's moving, as you can see, to move the character, you used to have to point in a direction and hold up on the controller, on the D-pad, on the PlayStation controller, to get the character to move in that direction. And it was a bit fiddly getting used to, but when you got the hang of it, it was okay. But a lot of people, especially today, don't like that type of style. And now it doesn't bother me, because that's what I grew up with, and games were more difficult, so it didn't bother me in the slightest, because if you were into a game, you definitely made the effort to try and get the best out of it. And the thing is, you would not let a game defeat you. That was the thing. And I know I was very competitive, especially when I got into a game like that. There was no way I was giving up on it. And especially with a game as good as this here, because I just wanted to keep playing it and playing it and playing it and playing it. I was just absolutely obsessed with this game. But not just me, my brothers were obsessed with it, all my friends were obsessed with it. I used to go in, I was in secondary school at the time, and I used to go in and rave about this game until the guys in the class at the time would just shut up, like, you ever stop talking about Resident Evil? I'm like, I can't, because I was obsessed with it. I know they used to laugh at me, but they couldn't see what I saw at that time. And they wouldn't have been into it as much as I was. I was just completely but all I wanted to do was play video games, to be honest. I had no interest in anything else. I just wanted to play games, and the fact is, getting the experience, this just really heightened that experience for me. I know, like, I've a love for the likes of other genres and styles of games as well, and one of my other favourite genres is like car games, racing car games, because I am obsessed with racing games. But when it comes to computer games, for me, it would be between racing games and the likes of these type of games, Resident Evil games. These here are all my favourite games, hands down. And I still go back and play this game all the time, so I do. That's how good of a game this actually is, and how it stands out so much to me. And I'll still play other games. I'll play Resident Evil 2, I'll play Resident Evil 3, and even with the recent remakes of Resident Evil 2 and 3 within the last 2 years, it's on modern consoles, which were fantastic remakes. I know 3 didn't get as good a response, but 2 definitely did. 2 is definitely one of the best remakes of any game of all time, which was a remake of an already classic game, which anyone that doesn't know, Resident Evil 2, the original one, is considered one of the best, if not the best, horror classic of all time. And then the remake just was just as good, if not better, in a lot of ways. Now, I know a lot of people will probably debating that, because again, with the style of the games is totally different. But again, it is worthwhile to go and play both the old classic version and the new version, and see the differences, and just to experience them. Because if you love the Resident Evil series, it won't really matter the type of concept or style of gameplay that it's gone through. You'll still love it anyway. Now, I will admit, because Resident Evil in modern times has gone through a lot of different changes, through different kind of genre styles, where it's gone from like the pre-rendered style backgrounds like this here to over-the-shoulder style games, and even to first-person style games. But the one thing that is prevalent, I think, in all these here, and this is just my opinion, like, you can quote me on it, but every time Capcom have done one of these type of games, like say when you look at these pre-rendered background games of the Resident Evil games, these are still the best pre-rendered background games out there. All the other, there's a lot of other developers have done some really good games, but none of them have matched Resident Evil in terms of gameplay, how they make you feel, and the whole lot. They're still definitely the dominant place in that. And then you look at Resident Evil 4, which totally changed the genre to an over-the-shoulder third-person shooter, and that was the first of its kind as well, and that's still today considered the best third-person over-the-shoulder shooter of all time as well. And there's been any amount of those type of games, so no matter what genre the Resident Evil has kind of gone into, it's nearly always dominated to some degree. And I know recent games it has gone first person, and I know that they're actually making Resident Evil 8 currently at the minute, and I've seen trailers of it and I think it looks phenomenal. But again, I wouldn't be as big a fan of the first person horror games as I am with the likes of this here, or even like over the shoulder, like with say Resident Evil 4 or even the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes. I'm definitely more inclined to go with them more so than first person, even though it may be more scarier. But I just find that those type of games are better. But my favourite of all the horror games is definitely this original style with the original game. Even with these graphics, they still scare the crap out of you. That's the one thing that's totally evident in it. And if you haven't played these games, I highly recommend, if any at all possible, you have to experience Resident Evil in some shape or form if you're into your video games, and especially if you like horror games. If you haven't played Resident Evil, which to be honest I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that probably have 90% that people have already probably heard of it, but I'm sure there's people that actually haven't. But if you haven't, you need to play this game. I totally 100% recommend it, because this game really just is, you know, I know I'm probably going on a bit long in this video because this video is quite long, but for me, I think this is just important, because this for me the whole premise really of this channel is for me to create videos based off my memories of games that I played in the past. And for me, even though I had played other games before this on the same evening I actually got to play it, but for me this was the staple, this was the benchmark. This is the benchmark, in my opinion, for the games, that everything that came to follow. Because had I not played this, I probably would have seen it things a lot differently. I probably wouldn't have enjoyed things or experienced games the same way. But the fact is, it's like as if it was meant to kind of be. It's like the timing was perfect, that I got to experience this game as and when I did, and not only, like, say, getting to experience the PlayStation for the first time, which is still to this day, even when I think about it now, it still, you know, blows my mind with how it made me feel and the whole lot, and just kind of the feeling of nostalgia. But then to play this here is just absolutely incredible. And I would talk like even myself and my mates and my brothers are still huge fans of this game. Even today, every time there's a new game that comes out for, like, say, modern consoles, we're nearly always forced to get it day one. And I've actually, even though I've played a lot of video games and I do own a lot of video games, as of recently, in recent years, I don't really buy games anymore that are come out day one. The Resident Evil franchise is the only game that I will still buy hands out day one, and I won't even hesitate, I won't even think about it, because I just love the franchise so much.
It's the
And
moonlight
I'm sure a lot
glow.
of other people out there are in the same boat.
Can you
And
play?
the thing about it is, like, this franchise is over 20 years old now, and myself, my brothers and my friends are still adore this franchise as much today as we've ever done. I know, like, right, say, there's games in the franchise and the series that probably aren't as good as, say, some of the originals, but they still hold their own to some degree. Even though some of the stories have gone off in slightly different tangents, they'd leave you with a few questions, but it doesn't take away from the originality and the whole concept of the original games. But we still talk about and have debates about what were the best games and what games we still like to play. And every time we're talking about, like, say, the
My
PlayStation,
interpretation is off a little.
Resident Evil 1 always comes up into the topic of conversation all the time.
May
because
I practice for a while?
all the way, like, this game, the feeling of nostalgia that it actually gives me, it also is the same for my brothers and my mates, because they all felt the same. Like I did say in my previous video, again, I'll leave a link in the description, I remember when I did first play this game, and I remember coming home the next day, that evening, and my brother Stephen and Derek were actually, Derek had called over, and they were in the living room watching TV, and I came in with a big grin on my face, and I was so excited to tell them about the game, and they were laughing at me. They were just like, Peter, you're full of crap, you know, this doesn't, you know, what you're saying is just... But at the same time, they were winding me up because they could see the level of excitement in my face. But at the same time, they were intrigued because, like, Peter usually does get excited, but not to this degree. This is something else. And it took about 2 weeks after that for them to really kind of understand, because again, the next weekend I'd gone down and stayed in my mate Mark's house again, and I was playing this again the following week. But it wasn't until about a week or two after that Mark actually stayed over in our house, and he took his PlayStation down, and the boys actually got to see Resident Evil for themselves the first time, because I actually got to a point where I actually stopped talking about it, because I was like, right, because the boys were laughing, but at the same time I didn't think that they believed me. I was kind of like, right, they need to experience it for themselves, they need to see this in action. And let's just put it this way, I was the one that had the last laugh, because when they seen it, the boys were just hooked. I remember, kid you not, like, I remember even Derek, even to this day, when he seen, like, a zombie getting his head blown off with a shotgun, when you hold the shotgun to the zombie's head and it just splatters everywhere, and Derek was like, holy crap. I can't even say the word, I don't even want to say it because I don't want to swear, but he was just completely just unbelievable. He said it, just unbelievable. Because I remember then we went out to play football for a little while. He says, right, you know what, let you play the game there for a little while and see what you think. I came in, and the grin on his face, he's like, Piero, you were so right, I didn't believe you. Even to this day, he'll still say it to me, he's like, dude, when you said that to me, I genuinely did not believe you. I thought that you were full of it. I really thought that, you know, that this game it was as good as you actually had portrayed it. But the thing is, he says, you described it so well. He says, everything that you said actually happened in the game. He says, I couldn't believe that how well you were able to describe the game, because you were talking about it that much. And he says, everything you said was true. He says, and I doubted you. He says, I actually did. I really did not believe that this game was as good as it was. Even my brother Stephen was the exact same. He says, Peter, I was just laughing my head off at you, but at the same time he says, you were right, you know. And it's like, yeah, I told you. You know. And that's how this game makes us all feel, that because it's the one thing all of us actually have in common. And even now, this will tell you how much love we have for the franchise. Because say if there was a new game that comes out, like, even though we've all got modern consoles and stuff like that, and like we're all grown up now, families, kids of our own, the whole lot, when it comes to these type of games, it brings us all together, because we still go on group chats on the PlayStation whenever there's a new game come out, and we'll all get excited. We'll all set up a group chat and we'll all jump in and be chatting, talking about the new game, what we're thinking of it, what have we experienced, what place we're at so far. And then we'll always talk about the original games, and especially this game. We'll always go back to the original title this here, and we'll always talk about it and have debates about it. That's how powerful this game really is. And I'm sure that a lot of you out there, if you've experienced this, I'm sure that you actually would feel the same, because this game really has left and still leaves such a long lasting memory for gamers out there. And it's one of my main reasons, if not the main reason, why I wanted to create this channel on YouTube. I've always wanted to create a gaming channel, but I didn't want to just go and do what everyone else is doing, because it's just, you know, I wanted to do something different. And I'm hoping that by doing stuff like this here, that I'm adhering to that. Because I just want to be able to share my memories and experience, and to replay old classic games and share all these stories, because I can remember them like as if it was yesterday. I can literally, I really can. And to be able to still remember that, I'm like, why not share it? Because I know there's other people out there that would love to hear those stories, because if they're into their gaming at all, that they would feel the same. Because I'm sure anyone that's a gamer will always have a story to tell, because they'll always be just as nostalgic about gaming, if not more so than even me. And it's great to share these experiences, and creating this channel now allows me to do that. So I'm going to continue doing it well into the future, for as long as I can. But not only that, it is allowing me to also get the chance to experience other games. As I always mention in the videos, it is giving me a chance to experience other games that I never actually really got to play or experience at all, or not get to play that much back in the day. And now I'm actually getting the chance now to actually do that. So that's why I'm making these videos and recording them, so that I can actually show you all what the games are like, even if you've experienced them or not. But at least there'll be people out there that mightn't have experienced them that would actually like to see them in action. And I just want to share my thoughts and my experiences, and hope that it hits home with somebody that actually feels the same about these type of games, and hope that they will actually be able to talk about it as well, because these type of games here are so nostalgic and they're so powerful that it really is very important, especially if you're into your games at all. Games like these here really stand out, and for me this is the pinnacle of it. This is the go-to title for me, and I've played a lot of excellent games over the years, even games that I will admit are definitely better than this, but none of them have made that lasting impression on me that this game has, and still has even to this day. Even when I think about and I look back to my first original experience of it, like I can remember it like as if it was yesterday. I was 14 years of age, and I'll never forget it. Just how it made me feel. I was just like, this is something beyond normal, you know. And I used to always get really excited by playing games, and even though when I was a lot younger, but when I played this here, I was just like, this is just... It really did just... I could not wait to keep playing this again and again and again. And like going back to... We used to rent out the PlayStation at the weekends. Myself and my mates. We couldn't wait for my parents to go out, because we get the PlayStation. If we didn't have it up in the room, we'd take it downstairs and play it on the bigger TV we used to have in the living room. And we would literally sit up all night, literally playing Resident Evil. We'd play probably a little bit of the other game that we rented out, but we'd always go back and play Resident Evil. And we could sit up till like 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning just playing this game, and you wouldn't even be tired. You just want to keep playing, but you knew at some point you'd have to go to bed. So that'll tell you how much this game influences and how much we just wanted to play it. This game really is incredible. I highly recommend, if you've not experienced Resident Evil or any of these type of games, go and play them. Definitely. And if you're into your PlayStation, especially the PS1, definitely you have to play this game, without a doubt. because if you haven't actually played this game, you will be pleasantly surprised by how good it actually is. Yes, it may take a bit of getting used to, and I know the controls and the graphics may seem outdated, but that is no excuse. This is one of the all-time classics, and this is the game that literally started the whole survival horror genre, and it started a whole load of different clones based off the third-person kind of fixed cameras and pre-rendered style backgrounds, as there is a lot of these type of games on the PlayStation, so I highly recommend that you give a lot of them a go. Yes, I know there is definitely a few of them that I have played over the years that are not as good, but they're definitely an interesting concept and they are worth actually having a go. I know they can be fiddly and they can be slow and ponderous at times, but they're so unique for their time, and you could clearly see the concept and the idea behind them, and you can see what they were trying to do back in those days. So they're definitely a style of game that is really worth playing. But even just in general, just to experience the PlayStation as a whole, if you've never actually experienced the console, or even, I'm sure that most of you actually have, and this is a really good opportunity to start playing those old games and reliving those old memories and playing those classics, because the PlayStation really had so much to offer for its time. There really was something for everybody. There really was. So I highly recommend that you give it a go, because you won't be disappointed. Definitely not. So that's enough rambling from me. So what are your thoughts of this game? Have you enjoyed it? Would you recommend it for anybody else that hasn't experienced it yet? And if so, what are your thoughts? Make sure to share it down in the comments below, as I'd love to hear your stories as well, because it definitely is a game worth playing. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, also subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to be updated whenever I release new videos, as I will be releasing more videos reliving old classic games like this and exploring other games I never got to play back in the days of the PlayStation, and sharing my thoughts and experiences with all of you. So again, make sure to keep playing those classic games and enjoy them as much as you can and relive those old memories. And again, like I always say, make sure to keep those gaming memories alive.